It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Chad Ford of Chad Ford's NBA Big Board Podcast, and I'll be joined by NBA champion Brian Scalabrine and former NBA GM Ryan McDonough for the Ultimate Mock Draft 2021 show starting July 19th. Locked On's local NBA experts make every pick. Subscribe today to the Ultimate Mock Draft 2021 presented by Locked On and Odyssey on the new Odyssey app and wherever you get your podcasts.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets. Today's episode is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. Are you happy because you win, or do you win because you're happy? At only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories, it's only worth it if you enjoy it. Stay tuned for the Ultra Player of the Week coming up in just a little bit in this episode. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Local experts on the #1 daily sports podcast network. You can subscribe to the pod on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Locked On Hornets, at Walker Mail, and at Nada the Scribe. It was an ugly performance yesterday from the Hornets. It got ugly once really we got to the second quarter. The Denver Nuggets, they won 129-104. Not much resistance the last two games defensively. We're going to get into that today, Nada.
Yeah, no, here's the thing. This was an expected ass whipping. If you expected a win, please pass me whatever recreational drugs you were using. Because, quite honestly, they had Jokic. Jokic took the torch to everybody, and everybody else ate. So,
and Michael Porter Jr. looked good yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
Too.
Again, if you were one of those people that wanted Porter over Bridges like I was, yesterday was not a good day at all.
Oh, you don't go back. Don't hint at that. You like Bridges. You know you like your boy Miles Bridges.
See, here's the thing. I like Miles Bridges. I liked Michael Porter Jr. But I also understand. But here's the thing. I can understand why they drafted a guy that, especially when they were trying to make the playoffs that year with Kemba Walker and squeeze the last little bit of Kemba Walker's tenure out of the Charlotte Hornets as they could. And Michael Porter Jr. didn't fit that window, so I understand.
And who tells me defense matters, Nada? Who is that guy that said that to me?
Was it me?
Oh, yeah. What do you mean? Is it you? Of course it's you. But no, you're right. Michael Porter Jr., he looked good, and for sure looks to be a guy that is on the rise, continuing on the rise. All right, let's talk about our Ultra Player of the Week. Locked On has partnered with Michelob Ultra to create a custom segment across the NBA titled Ultra Player of the Week. Each week, host will identify one player from their team and make whoever made the big play got you on your feet, cheering for your team, ultimately sparking one of three key emotions: joy, happiness, and enjoyment. We've got 4 games to go over after the All-Star break. We gave it to LaMelo Ball last week for his first half performance of the first season of his NBA career. And since then, again, the Hornets have played 4 contests. Now, this one seems pretty easy after you go back and look at who performed the most consistently over those games. Terry Rozier, I think, comes out as the guy to receive the Ultra Player of the Week award, and this is his second award in just a month's worth of time. Since Michelob Ultra evokes joy, because enjoyment isn't the end of the game, it's really the whole game. I think it's safe to say this player has allowed you to feel all of those emotions this season. And also, Michelob Ultra contains 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. So let me ask you this. Are you happy because you win, or do you win because you're happy? I know happiness and clutch time winning has been happening with Terry Rozier. That's why he gets our Ultra Player of the Week. Not a good game from really anybody in this one against Denver, but Terry Rozier led all Hornet scorers with 21 points. And man, LaMelo Ball had 14, missed 4 3-pointers. Malik had 16 off of the bench, and I think made some good passes, got to the foul line 9 times yesterday. That's a good thing to see. But really, Nada, you look over the last 4 games and the role that he served in that Sacramento comeback, Terry has a pretty comfortable margin with this award that he won.
Yeah, he's got a very, very, very comfortable margin with like just how he's won this. He basically got them. He won them the Pistons game. Came up big in the Kings game as well. Like It's not close. I'm almost ready to call him the most consistent offensive guy on this team, considering that the $30 million man kind of didn't show up in Mile High City yesterday.
Well, yeah, and I think you've been there ready to crown him, and I think Gordon Hayward, the last, I don't even know what the timeline is, but he'll give you some of those single-digit games. He gave you 7 last night, and he just went 3 of 7 from the field. If you look at his game log, I believe he gave you single digits earlier in this last 4-game stretch that we're trying to evaluate as well. I'm pulling up his game log. Yeah, he gave you 9 points in the win against Toronto, where he went 4 of 7 from the field. And it's been interesting, Nada, because 2 of the last 3 games from Gordon, he gave you 7 field goal attempts. And the last time he only gave you single-digit field goal attempts, he didn't. Yeah. That's it. Those are the only 2 games this season for Gordon Hayward that he's played where he gave you under 10 field goal attempts, and it was by 3. It was just 7 against Toronto, and it was just 7 against Denver, and that's despite him playing 26 minutes in both of those games. Now, he usually does play more than that, and you are talking about a blowout against Toronto, and you are talking about a blowout against Denver, so that certainly helps contribute to the lack of shots that Gordon put up, but still somewhat interesting. We had not seen that before from him, and yet we've seen that 2 of the last 3 games.
At this point, you just hope it's not a trend. He comes out firing against the Los Angeles Lakers. That said, I am tired of crapping on Gordon Hayward for right now. We got to talk about the winner of this. He's the only 2-time winner of the Michelob Player of the Week thus far, and that is Terry Rozier. That is the guy. That is the guy that you are afraid to pay a second contract to, Walker.
I am.
We got to give Terry some more of his flowers because he's earned a lot of flowers this year. He should own a florist shop at this point. He's gotten that much flowers from us, so therefore we got to honor him. But
well, and that's just from you.
That's true.
I mean, really, he just has to have a whole separate room of Nada's flowers because of all of them that you've given to him so far, the way that he's played. But he's been fantastic. And how about the graphic and the somewhat shade? They backed it up afterwards, but did you see the graphic last night that they put up with Jamal Murray's numbers this season compared to Terry Rozier's numbers this season? And so it was the question mark, right? It was the faded picture, so you couldn't tell who it was. It was a blind stats test, and they're very comparable. And Terry Rozier had a couple of better categories. Jamal Murray had a couple of better categories. And, of course, Eric Collins asked Del Curry, who's had the better season? And he goes, oh, well, this player clearly. I was like, those numbers are pretty close. But anyways, of course, the player that Del Curry chose, it was Terry Rozier. It does put in perspective some of the efficiency numbers that Terry is putting up this season. With a guy like Jamal Murray who's making a ton of money, it'll be interesting to see what Terry's going to get after this season if he continues this type of play.
Exactly. He's been – the thing is – that's what, when you started talking about the I'm afraid to pay him, I didn't really start thinking about it until they showed that graphic last night of, oh, my God, he's going to get a Jamal Murray level contract.
Oh, no, I don't think so. You think he's going to get that much money?
I do.
Wow. Jamal Murray is 24, and Terry just celebrated. Oh, yeah, that's something. He just celebrated his 27-year-old birthday yesterday.
Exactly.
Happy birthday.
Exactly. He will be 28 by the time that contract is up, and that usually is good enough for one more crack at the apple. He may be getting one of those 4-year deals that are going to be surprisingly expensive. That's where I think we're headed with him. So, this is why I'm giving him his flowers now, because it's cheap. It won't be so cheap on the next deal. I am starting to head into your territory here, and I do not like it, Walker.
I was going to say, where you ended up with me on this. You ended up with me at the end of this take, wandering down him actually getting paid Jamal Murray money, which, by the way, it's huge. There's no way he gets that much money. I think he's going to get paid a lot. But, whew, man, if you're talking about Jamal Murray getting paid or Terry Rozier getting paid over $30 million by the back end of his contract, I don't think that's going to be as much as he gets paid. But it's enough for me to not want to really give him all that much money. And it doesn't matter, man. Here, I'm trying to give him an award, Nada, and you're trying to bring up all this stuff. Why are you trying to bring up all this stuff, man? Why are you trying to do that?
At this point, it's just fun for me. That's why.
Yeah, it really is fun for you. All right. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Hornets, and also thanks to BetOnline AG. It's the fastest and it's the easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Football might be over, but the NBA, college basketball, and NHL are all in full swing. College basketball, it starts today. So make sure you go to BetOnline AG for all the NCAA tournament action that you can handle. It's got you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It's the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts, promo code Locked On. We've got a couple more subjects to talk about. How about their defense last night? And there's been a trend the last couple of games that has gone a little bit differently than what we've expected from the Hornets defense this season. We'll talk about that next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
I said, oh, hell yeah, just giving that confirmation of how awesome this is going to be. You tweeted at me, you're going to be singing the chorus to Billie Jean if you ain't careful. And
again, I point to the lie.
Yes, you're right. This goes back to our first conversation. There's a lot of babies being had out there. Goodness gracious, unexpected ones.
Point
ones
to
that
the
were
lie.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Betting on the Hornets doesn't have to be a guessing game if you listen to the new Locked On Bet podcast, hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. You can get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favored picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast, brought to you by betonline.ag, wherever you get your podcast. So Nada, this was a bad defensive performance once again. Mm-hmm. They gave up 129 points to the Denver Nuggets. You look at what they did against the Sacramento Kings. They gave up 122 to Sacramento. And the trend for them in those last two games has been the unusual amount of effectiveness that each of those teams have had scoring in the paint. Usually the identity of this team has been to try to pack the paint, not allow them to get the easy baskets, and just let them shoot from three. Because you don't have a rim protector, you have to make sure that you protect the paint as much as possible with multiple bodies, and that leaves you vulnerable to the perimeter, and that's also why franchises have had the franchise records that they've had from single game three totals this season. But the last couple of games, Denver and Sacramento, they've had their way in the paint. And so Rick Bonnell wrote about this. He wrote about this and said, this is who they are defensively. Barring some unlikely deal for shot blocker or rebounder, the Hornets defense will be mediocre at best the rest of this season. Fans talk a lot about Coach James Borrego not focusing more on the three-point line or what was his heavy use of zone. Those are more symptoms than the problem, which is the limitation of this roster. The Kings shot 56% and the Nuggets shot 58%. So the Hornets are quite fortunate. They ended up with a split of those games. This is who they are. And so again, you're scoring and you're seeing more points in the paint, and that needs to be fixed. But if this is something we've talked about, Nada. This is a roster that is very much so limited defensively, and it's why even very, very early on, I was ready to just lean all the way into offense, because there's not an answer that you can go to that cleans up all the defensive issues that you have with this team. Might as well put out your strongest offensive unit, and when they do that, it's what allows them to be in these games. And even with the bad performance that they had last night, they won 4 straight before that, and I think it was something like 7 out of 10 that they had won previously.
See, the thing is, like, I think I have, and this is something that I think I've either hinted, like me and you have either hinted at this point, or we've just outright said that this defense is bad. This defense is bad. This defense isn't going to get any better, because one thing that we saw on Hornets Twitter a lot, and I want to say a lot, is why aren't they going man? Why aren't they going man? Well, Rick just basically wrote out exactly why they've been going zone a lot, because there aren't that many really good defenders on this team. He only says that he put Cody Martin as the only above average defender, which, again, that was one more than I've said all year, which was I would throw Miles in that avenue, but I could be wrong. At this point, this team doesn't have guys that can stay in front of their man. And and if we're really honest, it's been a problem since Kemba. So at some point, it's going to have to be addressed with more than a big man. You're going to have to get another defender that can score. You're going to have to get another two-way guy. And the help's not coming this year, guys. It doesn't make sense for the help to come, especially when you have that 2021 draft that looks to be loaded with at least role players 20 deep, much less stars. So at this point, again, this team is just who it is right now, and it's okay.
Yeah, James Borrego discussed after the game, too. He said, our full attention has to be on the paint. We can't just be okay in the paint. We have to have our full attention there. The way we're constructed, we're not going to be able to take away both rim and threes every single game. It's not going to happen. And so the Hornets, as Rick Bonnell continues to write in this piece on the Charlotte Observer, the Hornets are currently 18th among 30 NBA teams in defensive efficiency. They allow 1.091 points per possession. At 29 and 19, they've played enough games to project that's roughly who they will be the rest of the season, for sure. This is something we even predicted very early on, and most Hornets fans did that as well. So this doesn't come to a surprise. This is the identity, and this is something James Borrego has warned us about constantly, too. I think it was after the Utah Jazz game where they set yet another franchise record, the second time this season against the Hornets, for made threes in a game. And Borrego's like, yeah, guys, the teams are going to hit shots like that against us. That's just what it is. So James Borrego's tried to warn us. Not only has he said it, but the play has exhibited that on the floor. And here you have it once again, except now we've seen some points in the paint. And now Borrego's saying, no, that's not okay. Like, we can't. We can't do that, or we're not going to have a shot to win some of these games. Now, I wanted to mention one other thing about some of the post-game availability last night, and it's something Gordon Hayward said, and he's actually said this a couple of times. It felt not noteworthy the first time he said it, but he seems to really harp on this, and he said this after the Utah Jazz game, too. Here's what he said. They're gearing up to try to win a championship, is what he said after Denver's loss last night. They've been together for a while. So when you as a team and collectively don't play your best, they can embarrass you. And that's certainly what happened tonight. But I go back to that one point. They've been together for a while. You know, that's something he said right after Utah. And it's not groundbreaking information. Teams that have been together longer understand each other better. They understand the philosophy of the coach better. And so they're going to be a better basketball team. It's not groundbreaking, but it's just something that the Hornets haven't had a chance to do the last few games the last few years because they're young. They're trying to rebuild, especially with Kemba now off of the roster. And when you get a ton of production, or just a ton of playing time, I should say, from a Devontae Graham, who's only in his third year with the team. PJ Washington, who's in his second year with the team. Same thing with Miles, a third year. It's going to take some time, not only just to accumulate talent, but also for these guys to get familiar with one another. And Gordon Hayward seems to really value that aspect of basketball, being familiar with your teammates.
Yeah, because it allows you to do stuff, especially in a year where you don't really have a training camp. It allows you to freelance a little bit more and understand your teammates. And that's the thing that I think gets lost in the expectation, or the raising of expectations as the season goes on, is that these guys really don't know each other and really didn't get a chance to know each other and are still learning each other on the fly. So as long as that continues to go on, I'm not sure how realistic your expectations can be in terms of defense and all this stuff. The problem that I guess I have, and actually this is something, not necessarily a problem, but this is something that Gordon's absolutely right about, especially when you notice these smaller market franchises. These smaller market franchises have to build off this camaraderie. It can't be a bunch of free agents. It can't be like the Lakers, where it's Rondo 1 year, and now it's Dennis Schroeder, who we're going to see tonight. Stuff like that. That can't go on because, like, you're a small market franchise. There's only so much money that you can make off of a winning team at this point. So I do wonder, like, are some of the defensive issues when we start talking about this, is chemistry going to fix a bunch of these going forward, and maybe it'll be better by next year? Who knows?
Who knows? We'll see. All right. I want to give a big thanks to rockauto.com for supporting the show. One reason to repair and maintain your cars is to save money that you can then use for other important things like the mortgage or food. Pretty important in your life. So why would you choose to spend 30%, 50%, or 100% more for the exact same auto parts at a chain store or new car dealership? The rockauto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brand, specifications, and prices you prefer. And best of all, prices at rockauto.com are always reliably low, and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. So again, why do you spend up to twice as much for the same parts? Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or your truck. You can write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. An amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. We've got more Hornets talk on the other side of the break. Locked On Hornets on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
I don't like doing that unless, like, I am totally annoyed. I don't drop the big joker in spades or that early. I don't drop the big joker. I only do it when I am officially annoyed, and I don't want to have this conversation. And I'm going to be real honest with you, Walker. The last thing I want to be talking about at 10 at night is Blake Griffin and the possibility of him coming here.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Get more analysis on the top prospects available in this year's NBA draft with the Locked On NBA Draft podcast. Scouting reports, draft rumors, mock drafts, and full coverage of March Madness 4 days a week from credentialed draft experts. You can subscribe today and follow Locked On NBA Draft, again, wherever you get your podcast. And also, Built Bar Madness, it continues on, Nada, and the matchup of, I believe, what did we have yesterday? Was it salted caramel and cookie dough chunk? Is that the matchup that we talked about yesterday?
I think it was salted caramel. Yeah, I think it might have been salted caramel.
I think it was salted caramel and cookie dough chunk. The voting is still going on there as well, so you can go to BuiltBar.com and put in a vote and choose your favorite flavor of Built Bar. We do have a winner of one of the previous matchups that we talked about. We're talking about the coconuts. They are continuing to move along in a huge, huge way. Peanut butter and coconut puff. You had coconut puff move on in that round. You had coconut almond move on against peanut butter brownie. So we'll see if these coconut bars continue to move on. But here's another one for you, Nada. Coconut contributed here as well. Just straight up coconut. No other alteration or anything like that. It's coconut.
That one?
Yep.
Wow.
Do what? Yep, just this one. So Coconut got a bye because that's just what they've been doing. They've been dominating the tournament. So Coconut versus white chocolate birthday cake. Who are you going to go with in this Built Bar battle?
I'm going to go chocolate. You're going
to go birthday cake, white chocolate birthday cake. All right, I think we're going to get all the blue bloods, man. I think they're all going to continue to march on, and Coconut is just the latest example of that. So we'll see exactly what happens as we continue with Built Bar Madness. We've been telling you about Built Bar. They have low calorie amounts, low sugar, high protein, high fiber, an amazing tasting protein bar with 100% chocolate on all of the bars. So you can go to BuiltBar.com or you can go to their Twitter handle at @bar_built. So they reversed it on you. Remember to use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order. That is LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order at BuiltBar.com. And you can check back to see who won today's matchup and who will become the best tasting protein bar that there is. You do have a game tonight, Nada, against the LA Lakers, and this is a reason why you laughed once again when we discussed some of the expectations you had heading into this West Coast road trip. They get destroyed against the Denver Nuggets last night again by more than 20 points. Do you expect much of the same when they tip off at 10:30 against the defending champs?
I'm telling you guys now, I'm going to catch this game at like 4 or 5 in the morning when I wake up. I'm not watching it live.
Man, do you wake up that early? Do you wake up that early on purpose every weekday?
Not on purpose, but
okay.
Unfortunately, because old, like there's some, like I turned 38, and for some reason I can't get up later than 6:30 in the morning now. So
sounds brutal.
Yeah, it is. It's very brutal.
I mean, I used to do that as well, and so I still do the sports centers and stuff.
Morning show, that's different for you though.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right.
So-
you're right about that. Anyways, continue. That's when you're going to catch the game.
Because I have no expectations that LeBron's going to actually like. This is a bad match. This was a bad matchup that before, like, second half of the back-to-back against the defending champs. On top of the fact that LeBron owns this team, this is a triple whammy. Like, literally, this is a triple whammy. This is not a double whammy. This is absolutely a triple whammy. And I do not feel good about this game. Like, this is the Hurt Locker. This 3-game stretch is the Hurt Locker. Because you got Denver, then you got the Lakers, then you get to stay around and then deal with Nick Batum and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George that probably got something for LaMelo Ball, too. I don't expect much.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to see the Lakers' home record. They're 13-8 at home. Just would think that would be a little bit better. They actually have more losses on the season at home than they do on the road, which is just kind of an interesting nugget about the LA Lakers. They are favored by 8 points. This game is going to be on NBA TV tonight, by the way. So if you can stay up for a 10:30 p.m. tip, then you can catch that game on NBA TV. So all you YouTube TVers, you streamers out there, you can catch that game tonight. So that is, of course, that's the trade-off, right? Like, of course, that's going to happen right after we get done with one West Coast road trip. Then all the fans have to stay up pretty much immediately afterwards, basically with just a week and a half, 2 weeks break in between. And yeah, you get to watch it on TV this time, but you got to stay up late in order to do it. The Hornets, they're 8-11 on the road after their loss to the Denver Nuggets last night. So we'll see if they're able to at least keep up some kind of fight. One interesting thing we didn't talk about last night too, Nada, was LaMelo Ball. He was in the game quite a while yesterday when this game was out of hand. Did you have a problem with LaMelo Ball staying in the game as late as he did despite
19.
the blowout?
He's the one person I expect to recover decently today. Like, let's be real here.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have taken him out. I wouldn't have had him in that late, but again, I don't think that's anything that I'm chastising James Borrego for. And last thing, we haven't addressed this. A story that I think is getting too much play. When you go to ESPN, it was one of the top headlines on their page that LaMelo Ball said he's not really all that excited to face LeBron James and the LA Lakers back home in the city of LA. For some reason, that made top headlines. And then you click on it, and then it's Dave McMenamin, who I believe is writing the piece. And then he said he didn't mean any disrespect by it, though. He did say he just was kind of built different and he grew up a little bit differently. And so that's just the clicks with a whole bunch of Z's at the end. And then you click on it, and then it starts to expound upon those details a little bit more. But of course, people ran away with it, Nada. Is this a non-story like it is to me? Is this a non-story to you like it is to me?
Story, because here's the thing, like, LaMelo Ball has been around hoopers since he was probably 8, 9, 10 years old. Like, say what you want about LeVar Ball. He's run a really successful AAU program. He's done a lot of things. He's been around a lot of hoopers. Again, you got Lonzo that was around a lot of hoopers, so therefore LaMelo was going to be around them too. It's no big deal. Like, if people are gonna like that desperate for clicks, then maybe you need to find another industry. Sorry.
Yeah, and he the quotations featured in this piece, it is pretty funny. He said, "I mean, nah," LaMelo Ball told reporters on a video conference Tuesday ahead of the Hornets game against the Lakers when asked about LeBron and if he'd be excited. He said, quote, "I grew up a little different, not really on basketball like that, so not really." And then McMenamin says, Ball's statement wasn't a slight against James. He added that, quote, "It will be cool to face the Lakers star," but said he keeps his focus steady no matter the opponent. Right. Like, it's just, you get to the third paragraph in this piece and it clarifies everything, unlike the headline, which is only solely made to have you click on it, which that's the game, whatever. But don't, click, make sure you click on the headline. Okay. Like, if it's going to be an angry response to the headline, then go ahead and click on it and then read the actual details. And then you can come to realize, oh yeah, this is absolutely nothing. It is interesting to me though, that he says not really on basketball like that. Like, yeah, it proves you don't have to be so crazy obsessed with everything basketball to the point where, oh, everything is such enlightening. Everything is the greatest thing in the world. And you can still really like it and be good at it and give that kind of answer when asked that kind of question.
Like, LaMelo has a cerebral, holistic approach to the game. and he's just figuring it out. And he's a 19-year-old kid. Also, the other thing is, and I think I've told this story, there are stories of open runs where LaMelo and LeBron played where allegedly LaMelo called LeBron weak. So there's literally, he's played against.
I don't think I saw that. I've never seen that before.
I got to share those stories with you at some point.
I need to look that up. I need to look that up for our king here in Charlotte. All right, that wraps up this edition of Locked On Hornets. Thanks again to Michelob Ultra, and congrats to Terry for getting his second Ultra Player Award of the week. And thanks to you guys for supporting the show as always. Now tell your smart device to play the most recent episode of Locked On NBA, Hollinger and Duncan, really any show on the Locked On Podcast Network. And remember, be back tomorrow for the last show of the week. We'll have David Walker. Yep, David Walker going to be joining us. The OG once again hops on the mic. So excited about that show. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you once again tomorrow.